Good evening and good morning, everybody. Welcome. My name is Sajid Ashraf, and I am president of Harvard GlobalWE. Welcome to all of our attendees from GlobalWE, and welcome also to the friends of GlobalWE who've joined us this evening. A very warm welcome and much gratitude to our speakers and our moderator who are graciously going to lead us in discussion today. First, a very warm welcome to Dem Pauline Kedem Talan, the Honorable Minister, Federal Ministry of Women's Affairs and Social Development, Nigeria. Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, a co-founder of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, a group of diverse citizens advocating for the rescue of the schoolgirls that were abducted in Chibok. To Aisha Yusufi, the immediate past chairperson of the strategic team of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, and of course, to our moderator, Harvard Globe team member, Dr. Isang Awa. Today, we will be discussing the shadow pandemic, understanding gender-based violence in Nigeria. The issue of gender-based violence is so critical and unfortunately has increased significantly due to COVID and its repercussions. And unfortunately, this is a global issue as exemplified by recent data from UNICEF. Thank you all for making the time for this critical discussion. We are very much looking forward to understanding the context and action that can be taken. Before we start, a little about GlobalWE. Harvard Global Women's Empowerment is a shared interest group of the Harvard Alumni Association. We are dedicated to the empowerment of women through education, dialogue, and connection among individuals working for women's rights and freedoms worldwide. We highlight and raise awareness about issues concerning women's empowerment globally, including, but not limited to education, political rights, freedom from violence, women's health, and economic empowerment. Our board of directors is as global as our interests, with representatives in the US, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. In fact, I live in Dubai. And today with us, we have Arti, our programs chair, who resides in Kanpur, India. Leah, our treasurer, who resides in Chicago. Andrea, our development chair, who lives in Nairobi. Janina, our board secretary, who is currently in Italy. Kendall, our marketing chair, who is at medical school in St. Louis. And Barbara, our GlobalWE Connect chair, who is also a Chicago resident. While the COVID-19 situation has curtailed travel and certain other activities, it has allowed us to come together in other ways. Today, we have the opportunity to focus on a very important topic virtually and globally. It is well known and documented that gender-based violence increases globally during times of crisis. In Nigeria, gender-based violence has always been an issue, and just like the rest of the world, has been exacerbated during the pandemic. I would like to thank our GlobalWE member, Isang, for bringing this critical issue to our attention so we can have this discussion. I would also like to thank Arti and Kendall for all of their efforts in making today happen. I would now like to request Arti, our programs chair, to introduce our panelists and the background to this conversation. Arti?
Thank you, Sajida. A very good morning to everyone joining us from the US. A very good evening to everyone joining us from the rest of the parts of the world. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce the fabulous panel for today's discussion. Each of these wonderful women have dedicated their life towards women empowerment. My first speaker for today is Her Excellency Dem Pauline Kedem Talan, OFR KSG. She is presently the Honorable Minister, Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development in Nigeria. She has previously served as the Honorable Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, and the Deputy Governor, Plateau State. Her numerous awards include World Ambassador for Peace, Interreligious and International Federation for World Peace, National Honor, Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, OFR, by His Excellency, President Olusegun Obasanjo, and many, many more. What a pleasure it is to have you with us today, madam.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker today is Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. Dr. Obi was a candidate for the office of the President of Nigeria in the 2019 election. She's an economic policy expert, Senior Economic Advisor, Africa Economic Development Policy Initiative, and co-founder of Bring Back Our Girls Movement, Nigeria. Dr. Obi was recognized as one of the Time 100 most influential people and by New York Times as one of the 25 women of impact 2015. Albert Einstein's Foundation named her as one of 100 visionaries. She was also a 2018 Nobel Prize nominee and has received several other local, national, and international awards. She was decorated with the highest medal in Nigeria, the National Award of Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic. Welcome, Dr. Obi. We are so grateful for you to take out the time to discuss on this very important and pertinent topic.
Thank you very much, Ati, but that award is the third highest award in the country.
Great, thank you, thank you. Our third speaker for today is Aisha Yusufu, who's an active Nigerian citizen who's unapologetic about her fight for justice and equity. A businesswoman who teaches financial literacy to empower people, Aisha is a member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement and has been advocating for the rescue of schoolgirls who were abducted from their school in 2014. She was part of the End SARS protests that took place in Nigeria, which were aimed at putting an end to police brutality. She was dubbed the Statue of Liberty for her courageous stance in defying the acts on citizens by the police during the protests. She was also named one of BBC's 100 Women of 2020, a list of 100 inspiring and influential women from around the world. Wow, welcome, Aisha.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a fabulous panel we have today. And to moderate today's discussion, we have our own Harvard GlobalWE member, Dr. Isang Awa. Isang works in Oxford University's Department of Social Policy and Intervention. She specifically works on the development of the digital version of Parenting for Lifelong Health, which is a suite of open access, non-commercialized parenting programs to prevent violence, including gender-based violence in low-resource settings. Isang holds a PhD in education at the University of Cambridge. She also holds degrees from Harvard University and the University of Uyo, Nigeria. As founder of My Rainbow Books Limited, she introduced in Nigeria personalized storybooks that are tailored for African children and initiated the nationwide annual creative writing competition for children. Without further delay, I would like to invite Isang to take the stage and begin the discussion for today.
Thank you, Arti. Welcome again, Honorable Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, Dame Pauline Tallinn. Dr. Obi.
Thank you, Dr. Isang.
Thank you. And feel free to call me Isang, everyone. Dr. Obi, yes, and Mrs. Aisha Yusufu. It's a pleasure having you all today, particularly because gender-based violence, and I'll be calling it GBV for short, in Nigeria is something that you all have tackled and fought to address. Hence, you are an important piece of the fight to eliminate GBV in Nigeria and have much to contribute to the discussion today. I am aware that not everyone who's listening in today may fully understand why this topic is so important and urgent, and why it's critical that it should be eliminated in Nigeria and indeed in the whole wide world. Also, some people may not be familiar with the specific work that you all are doing to address GBV in Nigeria. So I'd like to start this discussion by asking each of you to briefly discuss the effects of GBV on victims and the society as a whole, and to also share a little bit about the work that you are doing to address GBV in Nigeria. And I will begin with the Honorable Minister, Dame Pauline Tallinn. Over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Isang. And it's nice having my dear sister Obi and Aisha on this panel. Gender-based violence remains one of the most serious threats to the health and safety of women and girls worldwide. Its devastating consequences are felt at social, economic, and personal levels because of the grievous harm inflicted on the victims. The starting point of this discussion around is indeed very dear to my heart, and I want to thank you for bringing this burning issue for discussion at this conversation. Gender-based violence has always been there, but it's heightened and became so serious with the lockdown of COVID-19. Last year, with the coming of the pandemic of COVID-19, women and girls were locked in with their abusers. Schools were locked down and children were forced to remain at home. And this led to the height of gender-based violence, where women, young girls, children were badly abused. In most cases, incest, where mothers would come in and find their husbands on their daughters. That is the most devastating thing a mother could face within her family. All this became so heightened with the outbreak of the COVID. Despite existing laws and policies on gender-based violence in Nigeria, such as the VAP Act, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, and the Child Rights Act of 2003, we are challenged by the fact that Nigeria is a federation, and whatever is implemented at the national level has to be domesticated at the state level before its implementation. And we are facing this problem because not all the states have been able to domesticate the VAP Act and the Child Rights Act. And even those that have domesticated it, we are battling with the problem of implementation of these acts, because it is not just about arresting the perpetrators of this terrible act, but the implementation and ensuring that these people are properly punished and to serve as a deterrent to others. The ministry under my leadership is currently carrying out the following: addressing administrative and policy gaps, strengthening institutional capacity, promoting gender equitable attitudes, and providing equality service to survivors and ensuring social justice for victims of violence within their families. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, we are witnessing an uncommon political will by the leadership of this country. Mr. President has declared zero tolerance to rape and gender-based violence. I took a memo on the 10th of June last year to the Federal Executive Council, and it was well received, and the President addressed the nation and condemned rape and gender-based violence. He immediately set up an interministerial committee headed by the Attorney General, co-chaired by my humble self, where issues of rape and gender-based violence will be properly addressed. He also summoned the Inspector General of Police and directed that perpetrators of this terrible act must be properly punished.
Thank you.
States, the wife of the president and all our governors' wives have also lent their voice to condemn gender-based violence and to form a coalition. The wives of governors have formed a coalition of wives of governors concerned about gender-based violence, headed by the wife of the governor of Ekiti State, Irelu Bisi Faibi. And they are also embarking on supporting the ministry and the state's commissioners for women affairs to ensure that this terrible crime is properly checked. I commend the commitment of our state governors for taking this matter seriously after our meeting with them, because I requested for a joint meeting with the Governors Forum where all the governors were in attendance. And at the end of the meeting, the Governors Forum declared a state of emergency in all the 36 states. We are also doing, we also at the state, at the federal level, we intensified advocacy because everyone must be involved. When you see something, you say something. It is not just about government or the Ministry of Women Affairs to address this problem, but all well-meaning Nigerians must be involved to condemn this evil act within our society that affects women and children.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for sharing this details with us. It's so great to hear about all of this, and I would love to hear more, but because we have limited time, I have to move on at this time. And I would like Dr. Obi to please discuss the effects of GBV and also share with us about her work briefly in addressing GBV in Nigeria. Thank you. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Isang, and hello, dear Minister and my dear sister, Colin. What a pleasure to be on the same stage with you and Aisha to discuss a very important topic. I start by saying that we cannot discuss gender-based violence in isolation. We have to first situate it within the larger issue of gender inequality, which is a driver of gender-based violence. As we know, gender inequality is one that acknowledges that men and women are not equal and that gender affects an individual's lived experience. So that kind of an attitude basically means that whether it's biologically, psychologically, or culturally, there are barriers that are put in the place of women that then can lead to some of the factors that limit their growth when compared to their male counterparts. And gender-based violence happens to be a critical one. And that when we look at gender-based violence, sometimes we find ourselves caught in the traps of addressing the issues that affect those that have been abused. So we are responding to the needs of the victims is a very important thing. But if we stayed just with waiting to respond with the needs of the victims, then it means that we're going to create a scourge of gender-based violence in our society. And we already see that that is what has happened. Number 3 point that I want to raise is that the gender-based violence is something that requires the highest level of political will to actually bring it to the public agenda. The agenda setting for gender-based violence took time to happen in our country because it was a scourge that was growing and everybody knew it was going on, but didn't want to talk about it. And of course, society, it disincentivizes the victims from talking, because a stigma is put around them. And so for many years, gender-based violence was growing in seriously in the country, and everybody pretended it didn't exist. So it wasn't. So political commitment was absolutely necessary. The kind of leadership that I see Pauline doing in her ministry, making sure that every time that there's a roundtable, there's a conversation, she's talking about gender-based violence. Just talking about it is an important part of destigmatizing it, so that victims of gender-based violence will know that they are not standing alone, that the voices of others are available, and that people are ready to use their own leverage of political power to stand with them. That is absolutely important. And I think that my voice and the use of my voice and the fact that when young women were taken from their school in Chibok in 2014, there was no way I was going to keep quiet, because that was gender-based violence, that these girls were in school and terrorists could take them away and nobody wanted to acknowledge that injustice had been done them. So society must be willing to make gender-based violence a crime that must be punished. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that beyond the beyond the responding to the needs of the victims, preventive actions are so crucial. So there are structural issues that drive gender-based violence. Some of these structural issues, we need to address them. So some of them have to do with the things that entrench gender inequality. When you look at the economic disparity between men and women, economic opportunity that's not available to women means that they have fragility as far as relationship is concerned within society. They are looked down on as not capable of having voice. And so we must address the structural issues that keep women in poverty. We need to look at social norms. Some of the social norms that they require behavior modification. That's the hardest thing to achieve. But a society that makes it a duty to begin to look at some of the things that incentivize social norms that are inimical to the well-being of women can be very important in addressing gender-based violence. And so intellectually, my engagement on this matter is to call to the fore the fact that whether it's legislation or it is policy or it is even just showing political priority, according political priority to the challenge of gender-based violence, we need to do a collection of things. We can't take one thing in isolation and do a little thing and say we're addressing it. Structural problems must be solved structurally. And I believe that a lot of analysis of the zones of vulnerability of women in as far as gender-based violence is concerned is important. We don't do well with evidence-based policy making. So we can just say, hey, women are being beaten, women are being, okay, what is it? What are the drivers of that beating? How do we understand, is it women in certain industries? Is it is it girls in certain kinds of vulnerability zones? Is there something geographical about it? Is there something just purely cultural about it? What norms can we change? What policies can we address? How can we remove the barriers to the empowering of women to know that they have the voice to be able to do things about this? So, these are the kinds of things that I push in terms of what the work that I do. But Aisha will tell you even more because she's one young woman after my heart for the kinds of work that she's been doing, especially with the younger generation of young men and women to make sure that citizens do really put these kinds of issues on the table of our political class.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ezekwesili, and for your passion. I think most of us associate you with or know about your involvement with the Bring Back Our Girls initiative. So it's good to see what was driving or what is driving that passion. And I know that Mrs. Aisha Yesufu has also been involved with the Bring Back Our Girls initiative and possibly other work aimed at addressing GBV. So I'm going to turn over now, Mrs. Yesufu, please tell us about the work that you have been doing and may still be doing to address GBV in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isang, for having me here. And also thank you to my two aunties, the present minister and the former minister, Auntie Pauline and Auntie Obi. It's a pleasure being here. For me, I'm just thinking I should be taking notes and not just even contributing anything here. So one of the things that we have to think about in looking at the effect of GBV on the victims is that, first of all, when we are talking about GBV, there are different forms of gender-based violence. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be sexual, it could be technological, and it could also be financial. And so it has a myriad of effect on the victims themselves. We have, when it comes to like physical effect, a psychological effect, emotionally, people go through so much. You find that sometimes there are ill health, suicide, STDs, depression. The person's self-worth is taken away. And what is most crucial, it's when especially the person has been conditioned to behave, to believe that they are supposed to actually be victims. There are people who have been brought up because of this gender norms to look upon themselves as if, oh, when they are being violated, when gender-based violence is being meted out on them, it actually shows that they are loved, and that love is being shown. So it takes so much out of the person. And in terms beyond the effect on the individual, there's also effect on the society. And that's where we are losing out so much, because partly almost half of our population has been put through a situation whereby they don't believe in themselves. They see themselves as victims, and they are unable to contribute as much as they can to the society, because in the first place, they have been deprived from the many things. And that's the reason why Ajobi is talking about, the reasons why this gender-based violence in the first place happens. These are things that we need to tackle. For me, I look at it, it's a power shift. So it's a situation whereby you feel more powerful than the other, and you think you have a right to take whatever you want to take out of that person. I always give example to say that when sometimes a woman is beaten, the first thing that they ask is, what did she do? And I'm thinking, the same thing, that whatever it is that one has done, the person who hit her would, when a male counterpart does that to him, he dares not. And that's because of that power shift, where he thinks that he sees you as a victim and he can do whatever he needs to do and nothing will come out of it. One of the effects of gender-based violence is this control over reproductive rights. And you find out that a lot of people put women, let's use women now, in that position whereby in a situation where they do not have control over their reproductive health. And so it's dependent on them, the number of children they have. And sometimes because they want the woman to be under a tongue, to be under that oppression, they will insist that she continues to have children. Even when she stops, even when a woman feels like, oh, I don't want to give birth anymore, it's always a major issue, because at the end of the day, they feel when the children are grown, the control is taken away, and they want everything that they can do to ensure that that control it's there, and they continue to perpetuate it. And of course, there's no loss of productivity to the society. And then we have situations that unfortunately you have this transfer aggression from the person who is a victim. Before you know what's happening, they begin to take it out on other people. It could be taken out on people who are less vulnerable than they are. And so the oppression that is being meted on them, they continue to take it out there. In terms of the work that we've done in different ways, one of them is to let people know that they have a right and they have voices, and that those voices should never, never be shut down. And they do not need permission from anyone for them to speak, and that they must speak their truth and continue speaking irrespective of whatever it's being done to them. And that's why the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we have that platform where everybody knew that they had the right to be heard. They have an equal right. And it doesn't matter whether you're female, like many people did say to us during the Bring Back during our campaign, the early days, that, oh, forget about the girls, they will not come back. Oh, they are now women and all of that. Like, no, they have a right. And when we're talking about Chibok girls, when you're talking about all those that have been abducted, we say it's not a privilege for them to be rescued. It's their right as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So one of the things that we do is to ensure that we normalize, hearing the victim speak, the victim to understand that they have a right to speak. They shouldn't be stigmatized. It is not their fault that they were victims, because sometimes not only are the victims shamed, they are made to take on the burden of the fault of what happened. And so these are some of the things where we enlighten people and give them that platform for them to be able to speak, letting people know of their rights, educating them about their rights, and the fact that, look, they have a right to be heard, they have a right to be protected, and it is the right of the state, it is a duty rather of the state to protect them. It's been one of some of the things that we have continuously done. In terms of not allowing the gender norms, where it's looked upon as there are certain roles that are gender-based roles. And so if you do not do them, somebody else has a right to come at you. Or the situation where they feel that, oh, girls shouldn't be in school, or girls shouldn't go to school beyond certain age. For example, the Chibok parents, some of the Chibok mothers were the ones who insisted that they wanted their children to go to school. They knew what it was not having education, and they wanted, education is the easiest way to break the shackle of poverty, and they wanted their children to be able to get a life that they couldn't. At the end of the day, when the abduction happened, a lot of the Chibok mothers were blamed for allowing their daughters to go to school. Remember that this is a region where it's the most educationally backward region in Nigeria, where the Chibok girls were taken away. And these mothers who wanted their daughters to have a better life than they did were now actually being accused of the ones that led to all of this tragedy, because they didn't allow their daughters to get married off at a tender age, and they wanted their children to go to school. So some of the things that we do is to remove this shaming and let them know that no, it's not something wrong that they have done. It's an amazing thing that they did, wanting their children to get that education that they're supposed to do. And also, most importantly, for people to understand that there's nothing like gender-based rules. There's no girl that was born into this world with a pot in her hand or a broom in her hand or anything. We all came into this world as equal, as human beings. And so things should be based on strength-based rules and not just gender-based rules. And I'll just end here by saying that my daughter always has something that she says. I think as far back when she was like 12 years old, she always says that it is from being a sister beater that you turn to a wife beater. And so it's very important for whatever we're doing to protect our daughters and let them know that they are equal to anyone. And they are not to be seen as those that should be beaten by anyone. And in that way, they know that they own themselves, they have a right to speak, and nobody in any way whatsoever should mete out any violence against them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Yesufu. It's quite encouraging to hear you speak, and I believe that many people listening in are inspired to also seek ways that they can contribute to the fight against GBV. Because we have limited time, I'm going to appeal to all our panelists to please give very brief responses. We have a lot of interesting questions, and I'm also hoping that we'll have the time to take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. With that, my next question is directed at the Honorable Minister, and it touches on something that Mrs. Yesufu just touched. It goes this way: a major reason girls and women put up with GBV is that they are financially dependent on the men in their lives, as they are not economically empowered. According to a British Council report, Nigeria's out-of-school population is the largest in the world. And of the staggering 10.5 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, the majority are girls. The implication is that these out-of-school girls will likely become dependent on men for economic survival. My question is, does the government have any schemes aimed at economically empowering women, especially those in villages and rural communities, so that they may be in a position to walk away from this or from unhealthy situations? We would like to hear more about these, if they exist, as well as how these schemes may be accessed. Honorable Minister, please.
Thank you very much, Isan. And I want to thank Obi and Aisha for the good work they're doing with other civil society organizations in supporting the efforts of ensuring that our children that are being kidnapped and all those that are in activity are back home. Thank you. Yes, government has many schemes aimed at economically empowering women in these areas. Some of them are the ongoing nationwide grant for rural women project, which was introduced last year to sustain the social inclusion agenda of Mr. President. That is managed under the Ministry of Humanitarian, Disaster Management and Social Development. The joint partnership with UNAIDS, we have a joint partnership with UNAIDS, UN Women, and the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, through the UN Basket Fund under the Risk Communication and Community Engagement Project in Nigeria to respond to gender-based violence and prevention of COVID-19 by providing cash transfer, personal protective equipment kits, and sanitizers to vulnerable women in rural areas. We also have an ongoing collaboration with Action Aid Nigeria to implement an ongoing program titled Revitalization of the Rural Communities Economy Project. This is also aimed at improving the socioeconomic status of the poor, especially those living in rural areas. We also have the Women in Agriculture programs. Bank of Agriculture supports rural women and women farmers and the Ministry of Agriculture, we work hand in hand because women issues are multi-sectoral. We work with virtually all the ministries, and we have gender dates of empowering women in all the sister ministries: Ministry of Humanitarian, Ministry of Industry and Investment, where we have the SME and the special program for the SME that Mr. President has put in over 75 billion. It's 45% of this loan is given to women, while 5% is also added again to the vulnerable group. We also have we work with Bank of Industry, where they support women with loans to support their various businesses. The SME programs is paying off because a lot of small scale businesses, most women in small scale businesses are benefiting from this, and we are encouraging more to be involved. We also have Nigeria for Women project. It's also a loan supported by the World Bank, and that is also helping women across the states. We are now, we want to scale it up to cover more states, but presently we have 6 states that we're working with, and our plan is to reach out to all the 36 states. So economic empowerment is key because the issues, most of the problems affecting women is because of their poor economic base, and that's why the girl-child education is top on my agenda. Education is the greatest investment any community or any government can give its citizens. And that's why it's sad to know that this kidnapping and banditry is affecting our efforts towards the girl-child education. As Aisha rightly says, most parents now that their daughters are kidnapped are scared to allow them get back to school when they're back home. And that's why we're intensifying more advocacy to these communities. The far north especially is highly vulnerable, and more children, most of the out-of-school children is more in the north. Although we have the issues of boys too in the southeast, but education is a right of every child. And government is doing everything possible to ensure that our schools are properly secured now so that our children can be safe in school.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for enlightening us on these schemes. Hopefully, as awareness is created about these schemes, more women will utilize the opportunities and gain economic empowerment. The next question is for Dr. Ezekwesili, and it's something she previously touched on. GBV is rooted in inequitable gender norms, and eliminating it will require addressing the structural causes as well as the risk and protective factors. And could you kindly shed more light on the structural causes and risk and protective factors for GBV in the Nigerian society? I'm going to skip that because you actually did touch on that when you were speaking previously. I think what I'd like you to do right now is to touch on how this can be addressed in homes and in the larger society. Thank you, Dr. Ezekwesili. The question is for Dr. Ezekwesili. And I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I can't hear her at the moment.
Yeah,
hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. You know, I think that a very important thing we need to do is actually to learn from the lessons of things that have worked. So for example, a country like Vietnam, you know, had to revise their law when they undertook a survey, a nationwide survey. And when the results of that survey came out, it was so shocking. I mean, it shocked everybody to the point where there was a unity of voice and unity of action that followed. And so the kind of things in the legislation and many legislations, as a matter of fact, that needed to be reformed, certain policies that needed to be put in place, people immediately sort of coalesced around them, because there was now a coalition of the willing for the necessary policies and institutions, as well as laws that could prevent the occurrence of GBV. Now, one of the things that I found very interesting with the Vietnamese action on gender-based violence was that just one item of having regular visits, the regular visits to homes that were prone to GBVs became a deterrent. They actually tracked it. It was that simple. So addressing GBV has to be at the most basic local level. The minister is here in Abuja, and she can operate at the high policy level. But in terms of preventive actions, there's got to be systems of monitoring, systems of support that are close to people who are vulnerable to this. And then a second thing is where you actually are rebuilding existing institutions to acknowledge GBV as part of their mandate. It took a long time before the Nigerian police began to pay attention to the fact that GBV is a crime. For many decades, if a woman went to the police station to say her husband beat her, the police would say to her, "What did you expect?" The attitude was nonchalant. So today, GBV desks at the police station is something to be expected. But the next natural question is, who are the people manning? Look at the word. Did you hear that? Manning. So because it would most likely be a man put to be the officer in charge of the GBV desk. And so when the complaints of women come, they are nonchalant about it. So we have to look at very, we have to really tackle this thing in a way that is disaggregated of the problem, so that we can be more specific in identifying each of the solutions that would work for it. And I think that my final point, as far as that is concerned, is look, advocacy is so important for the behavior modifications with regard to these gender norms. Gender norms did not just happen. They took many years of practice, and it's the practice of the wrong things. If you're going to modify people's behavior, it is not a switch on the light and switch it off. No, it's got to be persistent. It's got to be very well designed. And I think that part of the problem that we have on the continent is that we act on these matters as fads. So it's a fad. Everybody cares about gender-based violence. Oh, everybody is in it. No. We have to make this a programmatic thing that becomes mainstreamed into the things that we do, so that we are indeed tackling a scourge that is robbing women of their productivity. We need to tie what is going on with GBV to the continent's poor productivity. If your continent is 50% women, and you know that a large percentage of the women are abused, whether sexually or mentally or psychologically, or verbal assaults, or all kinds of other assaults that happen, and you ignore it, you are robbing the continent of productivity. It is time we made gender-based violence not just a matter of a woman was beaten, but that the society lost its productivity because women are being made to be so weak to contribute to the growth of society. Everybody must feel a loss when a woman is beaten.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ezekwesili, for that very informative response. I believe that there's something there for every one of us to ruminate and act on. So thank you again. I have here a question that was sent in by Joy Harrison Abiola, the Executive Director of Catalyst for Global Peace and Justice Initiative. It goes thus. In Nigeria, communities in the remote peripheries and underprivileged regions are worse hit by GBV. If we are horrified by the cases of Inhumoren and the Chibok girls, which have been made high profile and brought to limelight by advocacy, we would be even more horrified about what is happening in the hinterlands. How do we bring the searchlight to where it also matters? The villages, remote peripheries, and the underprivileged regions. I will ask Mrs. Aisha Yusufu to please respond to this question.
Thank you very much, Isang. And I think Dr. Obi has she has responded to that question when she talked about advocacy and also on the issue of monitoring, ensuring that they're being checked and all of that. So I think that's quite key. But one of the things that I find a bit puzzling, and I'm thinking, is it really that, for me, I need to do a study on that. Is it really that the gender-based violence is more, or we assume that it's going to be more because it's in the hinterlands and in the rural area? The reason why I say this is because I had a paradigm shift when I was part of the campaign team of Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. And as of that time, going around and meeting people, the so-called women that you thought we were women of the lower cadre were the ones who were more enthusiastic and who believed that, yes, it was the time for a woman to be president. Yes, a woman can be president. And then we went through, market, rural areas and all of that. And we were getting this emphatic, yes, we can do this. Let's go on all and do it. And then you come to the city and, more educated women, and you were hearing, is it possible? Is Nigeria ready? And so I started, we're looking at, okay, what is going on here? And one of the things, that we realized was that most of these women that we tend to look upon as women from the rural area, they were actually more financially independent. They might not have as much money as some of us do, but they are financially independent in that they are not depending on patriarchy for anything. They were market women, they were farmers, they were doing their thing, and they had this power. And some of them were actually the breadwinners in their families. So they weren't under this the tomb of patriarchy where they were just they expected that they didn't have a voice and any of that. So in a way, some of them do have a voice. I think we need to check again and do more study on that to find out what our assumption, whether it is really what it is, or there's a dynamic that is playing on. And this has to do with economic empowerment, which we've been talking about all this while. The more economically empowered a woman is, the more educated a woman is, the more they know that they're not allowing themselves to be just victims. They don't just see themselves as victims out there. Having said this, I think a part of the things that need to happen to be able to bring out the gender-based violence going on, even in the hinterland, is to ensure that the advocacy is on. People's voices are being heard. People are allowed to come out and speak about their stories. Civil society organizations put a searchlight on the hinterlands of the rural areas, and just knowing that people who perpetrate this act, they are persecuted, and then nobody is being shamed. In this way, there will be more. It's giving the victims the enabling environment for them to be able to come out. It's also very important to ensure that the survivors, their needs are being addressed. Their needs are being attended to. And in a way, they know that, okay, people are listening. People will be there and more people will speak. And some of these survivors, and they have voices, and we should empower their voices and ensure that they are able to come out and speak. Peer-to-peer education is also very important. Having social workers out there that comes to the issue that Dr. Obi talked about in terms of monitoring, just ensuring that people are coming to check and see what is going on. I mean, this has to be policy issue. It's not just to, a mere lip service to this issue, or we just think, like Dr. Obi said, it's a fad and then people are engrossed in it, and after a while they move on to other things. No, these things are not affect not just our lives, not just the lives of people, but also the economic strength of the nation. Because when you have people who have been forced to have low self-esteem, low self-worth, they can't contribute as much. The violence has been meted out on them. They're not able to be as productive as they can be. And it's in every one of us' interest for us to ensure that everyone is as productive as they can be, for us to get that productivity in our country. I must add also, like the justice system must, it needs to really be empowered. Yes, the laws are there, the VAP law, the Child Rights Act, and all of that. But when it comes to enforcement of this, you find a lot of loopholes, and these loopholes need to deliberately be tackled and ensured in such a way that the victim is listened to, not the one you go to a place like so you go to the police station and then you're told that, oh, it's domestic affair, it's private affair, go on. And you find out that we have this issue of religious leaders who are mostly male, are the ones that will come and tell you that you should let it be, you should take this thing, it's an act of God, and all of that. And it goes on as the society continues to oppress the victims that have already been oppressed and are going through all of this. But most importantly, also empowerment programs are very important, and awareness creation is something that really should be tackled to ensure that everyone's voice is being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You've touched so many important points. And honestly, this is such an interesting discussion, and all of you have raised such great points. But I may not, Artie, do I have time to take a few more questions? We really have so many other interesting questions here. Artie,
maybe one last question to all the panelists.
Oh, now that's a tough one. I have one here that was about the government addressing. Oh, one last question to all the panelists. Okay.
Is that one last question or one each for every panelist?
Artie, one last
one question to each. Yes.
Okay, great. And please, may I appeal to our panelists? We love your passion and we love all the exciting things you're saying, but please, if you could just make it a bit shorter. I wish we really had more time, because I'm really interested. I'm enjoying this and I'm really interested in hearing everything you have to say. Okay, so I'm going to say this one is for the Honorable Minister. It was sent in by Ms. Mary Ononopono. And even though it was not addressed to a particular panelist, I've said I'd like to pose it to the Honorable Minister. Those kidnapping Northern girls are not necessarily Nigerians. And additionally, as Nigerians have established themselves abroad, there is increasingly a spillover of GBV in diasporic contexts. Given the scale of the problem of GBV, and given that such violence often spreads across regional and national borders, do you think it is possible to effectively tackle this issue internally? What is the present government doing to engage relevant international agencies?
Thank you very much, Dr. Isan. Security issues actually is everybody's business. And as the lady that posed that question rightly says, most of those kidnapping our girls are not necessarily Nigerians. And that's why presently the Nigerian government is working with neighboring countries to tackle the situation, like Chad, Niger, Cameroon, Benin Republic, all the neighboring countries. We have to work closely together to address this issue, because we have problem of migration and all the other issues. I also want to share the good news, in addition to throw more light on what my dear sister Ngozi Obi rightly said about her worry on the gender, those manning the gender desks at the police stations. With the involvement of women in the security sector, I took that seriously. The NAC under the UNSCR 1325, the Ministry of Women Affairs is taking these matters very seriously. We've launched the first National Action Plan and the second National Action Plan. We are about to start the third National Action Plan. And we have Aisha, an AIG, the most senior police officer, Aisha Abubakar, who is the one, she is the gender advisor, she is heading the gender desk. And we are working hand in hand with her and other female senior officers, those in uniform. The same with the military. We also have Brigadier General Thomas, who is heading the gender desk of the female military. And we are also working closely with them. Recently, we just launched the gender policy of the military, the armed forces. We also launched the civil society Civil Defense Corps. We just launched the gender policy just last week. We are now looking up to and encouraging, working closely with the Honorable Minister of Police Affairs and the Inspector General of Police to ensure that the police gender policy is also launched, and we hope to have that very soon. So the issue of security, women have a very, very crucial role to play. And when we have women involved and taking charge, we get better results.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. It's really wonderful to hear about this. And the next question is somewhat related to the last, as it has to do with the kidnapping of Northern girls. So it is a question that has been burning in my mind for several years, and I believe it's also on the minds of many people here today. This question is for Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. And before I pose it, I want to first of all thank you and everyone who has been involved in the Bring Back Our Girls initiative. Now to the question. Over 100 of the girls kidnapped in Chibok 7 years ago have still not been found. Leah Sharibu, who was kidnapped with other girls in Dachi 3 years ago, is still held in captivity. Are efforts still being made for these girls to be found and returned to their families by the Bring Back Our Girls initiative or any other quarters? If yes, could you please share this with us?
So Isang, that question would have gone to the minister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No,
you know,
all of us.
because yes, it's a question that belongs to the government of Nigeria. And then for you to know that in the case of our Bring Back Our Girls movement, we were every day at the Unity Fountain. Only that actually only stopped because of, first, the government decided to wall up the Unity Fountain, and then the COVID struck. That's what stopped the daily advocacy on the ground. But our advocacy as a conscious movement that deployed the technology as much as possible to give voice and amplify the cause of these girls has not stopped. Only last April, we did the 7 years of the Chibok girls and the lecture, and we continue to use our platforms to make a case for them, Chibok girls, Leah Charibu, and then we connect what happened to them to what is presently going on, where it has become a norm. In fact, kidnapping of school children has become an industry. Why? Because the government failure rewarded that behavior of kidnapping. It made it an attractive, and now they call it business. And so it has proliferated. So we need to get back governance, effective governance that actually considers that the dignity of the human life as the foremost thing that any worthwhile nation state must guarantee. The final thing to say to that is that for us as a country, if we do not honor the pains of the families of Chibok girls, it will haunt us for forever. The pains of the families of Chibok girls are not spoken to. Just like you turned to me and asked me a question about what is being done about them. That's the same way, parents are asking the movement, so will our children come back? The question belongs to our government. We are a bunch of citizens that believe in shared humanity, but our society must learn to put accountability where it belongs. Accountability for Chibok girls, accountability for Leah Charibu, accountability for the better school children, it belongs in the domain of governments and those that govern us. And that has to be said for what it is.
I absolutely, thank you so much. And because this is a question that I know I'm personally really interested in getting answers to, and I believe a lot of other people, I'm going to plead with Artie because I would like to turn the question back to the minister. I'd like to know, and I believe many other people would like to know, what efforts, are there still efforts being made for these girls to be found and returned to their families? If yes, Honorable Minister, please share with us what the government is doing to bring back our girls and to rescue Leah Sharibu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very painful and very disturbing issue to government. And I want to again thank Obi and Aisha and all those that have been putting pressure and raising their voices and all other civil society organizations. Government is working around the clock and doing everything possible to ensure that these girls are back. I, as the Minister of Women Affairs, and the entire ministry, we are also being supported and encouraged by Mr. President. Mr. President is very worried over the situation of our girls still being abducted and the parents of these children. I have visited Chibok twice now. I raised a memo and appealed to Mr. President, supported me to visit the parents of the Chibok girls, and those that came back with children. We have been supporting the parents, supporting the children, supporting the parents of both those that their children came back and those that their children are still to be recovered. We went and gave support to all the families, both those that their children were released and those that are yet to be released, so that at least they can be able to fend for the family. But government is doing everything possible, and government is very worried over the abducted children and the spate of kidnapping that is going on. Those that are in school in the American university, because of the concern, Mr. President said these children have really suffered. Those that were released, he said for what they have gone through, they need the best school. They are in the American university in Yola, and I've visited them twice and will continue. We are communicating. We have a desk officer that is always on ground to monitor and know what is happening with them in school. I go there and spend the whole day. I eat with them, I sit and chat and make them feel at home. And for those that are yet to be released, Leah Shaibu's parents have also reached out to them. I've met the parents twice, and we're also supporting them. However, our greatest worry is to get these children back home. And by the grace of God, with the efforts of government and prayers, our prayer is to see that these children get back home. And government is doing everything possible to see that these abducted children return home.
Isang, just to add something, because I won't get in a word again, and it's really to say to the minister that all the gains we have made in the agenda for women, we risk losing all of it because of the way that we have not made the matter of the rescue of Chibok girls and Leah Charibu, the priority that it should be. Honestly, we risk losing all of it. We know some of the mothers who continue to blame themselves for sending those girls to school. And because of that, there are many other families in the northern part of the country today that say, I'm not releasing my child to go anywhere. I'd rather have an illiterate that is alive than have a child who goes to school, gets lost, and then the government does not really do much to to give justice. So please, I beg of you, whatever it would take, there is still possibility. I wondered how it was that we could get back the Kankara children, the Kagiro children, but we couldn't get Chibok girls. We couldn't get Leah Charibo. How is that even sensible in a society where we have to be careful not to show that some are more important than the others? Because it appears that Chibok girls and Leah Charibo are not as important as the other children that were quickly procured by our government. It is critical that that should happen. My final point is that in all this conversation that we've had, we need really to invest in data. The capacity to use data to inform our choices, our policies, that address structural, when you have structural problems, you know, if it's not an emphasis on data, look at what I said about the Vietnamese. Madam Minister, why don't you build a coalition with some of the civil society groups, and let's do a major survey on GBV. Let's get a shock therapy for this society. Because
we have a coalition with civil society on gender-based violence, and we are working very well.
Let's invest in data. Let's do a national survey, a big one that will shock everybody into attention on this matter. Right now, you know, we talk amongst ourselves as women, and even amongst women, you know that there are many of them that are so stuck in that whole attitude of the men can do anything and get away with it. And you know, so the realm of, you go from patriarchy to misogyny to all kinds of entrenched drawbacks, systemic drawbacks that are pulling women behind. Let's use some data. It's time that your ministry worked with organizations. I'm not talking about data that you put away in the folder. I'm talking about data that we translate into shock therapy for our society.
We have launched the National Situation Room Data Dashboard with the support of UNDP. We are working with UNDP, and we've launched this. In fact, Amina, the Deputy Secretary General of UN, was around. She was part of the launch. It was a big ceremony last year. We have launched this National Situation Room and a data dashboard for ending gender-based violence against women and children as an ardent response to the identified gaps in the availability of real-time data on gender-based violence, to provide evidence-based planning and monitoring of the issues and concerns of women and girls, including the girl child. We have also launched the National Sex Offenders Register to name and shame perpetrators of sexual and gender-based violence in November 2019. That we are also urging all states to launch the same sex offenders register. I know that Ekiti has launched it, Lagos has launched it, and many states are coming up now, those that have domesticated the VAP Act. And when this sex offenders register is launched, it is the naming and shaming. Nobody wants to see his picture exposed, his name and his picture exposed. This, we are making efforts, and we are working with civil society organizations to make sure that perpetrators of these criminal acts are exposed. All hope is not lost on the Chibok girls and the Leah Charibo. Government is putting every effort, and by the grace of God, all hope is not lost. I strongly believe that by the grace of God, these girls will be returned back, just like the other girls that were kidnapped from the various schools. And we are also intensifying advocacy at the state level and the local government level. We have a structure. At the national level, we have the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. At the state level, we have Ministry of Women Affairs, under where it's headed by the commissioner, and local government levels, we have social welfare officers. And we are always in synergy, working and monitoring, because most of these crimes take place at the rural areas. We've now, wives of governors are fully involved Our governors are very committed to this. Wives of governors are all committed to lend their voice and to ensure that they support the commissioners at the state level to expose perpetrators of this crime. So all efforts are being made at all levels, national, state, and local government levels. It is not just government, it is everybody's business to speak and say something when you see crimes are happening within your community. We want everybody to be an ambassador, to say no to any form of crime against women and girls.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Minister and Dr. Ezekwesili. This is such an important discussion, and I really wish that we had more time, because I'm sure there are so many questions and so many things that people would like to know, especially about the Chibok girls and Leah Sharibu. But I'm aware of the fact that we've gone over the time really, and I really want to appeal to our participants. I'll just take one last question, and this is actually a 3-in-1 question, and it's focused on identifying GBV perpetrators. How can we identify GBV perpetrators before the attack? Are there clear signs that we can look out for? If yes, what are these signs? I'm going to ask Mrs. Yesufu to please respond to this question, and then I'll hand over to Ati. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Isang, for that. I mean, it's before I go on to address the question, one of the things that I must say is the fact that one of the things that we've all agreed upon when we talk about gender-based violence is the fact that the power play plays a very great role. When girls are not educated, they are made to be more likely to be victims. When empowerment, financial empowerment also contributes to that. One of the things that we have right now is that a lot of parents have been forced into a very terrible situation where they have to think about the lives of their children and also the education of their children. And a good number of parents are choosing to save the lives of their children rather than sending their children to go to school where they will be taken away. So in terms of all of this is that we're talking about, ensuring that children are safe in school, the Safe School Initiative and all of that have to be put in place. The government have to take responsibility, because the primary responsibility of government is the protection of lives and properties, and they must protect our children in school. Otherwise, we're going to have more of this gender-based violence being perpetrated. There are signs of gender GBV perpetrators, and it's very common. Before I also go on to talk about those signs, I like to implore every one of us, the society must do everything it can to stop this current trend that we have, where people are being forced to be in relationships, where people are being forced to be in marriages, where people are being forced to be in situations where they are not supposed to be. When they want to get out of this situation, there is this conditioning going on. People come at them, you've talked them out of it, they force them in it. Oh, marriage has to be for better, for worse. You have to stay there no matter. There are even some parents who will say to their children that they'd rather receive their corpses than for them to be divorced. And all of these things the stigma has to be taken away. Some of the signs of GBV perpetrators are things like extreme jealousy, possessiveness, unpredictability. You find somebody is extremely jealous, is not love when somebody all the time, whatever is happening, you have to be looking at that, trying to ensure that their self-worth is not taken away, their ego, rather, not self-worth, their ego. You have to massage their ego all the time. Every little thing they are jealous, all of these things are signs. Bad temper, when there's no respect in a relationship, where some people feel that there's some gender norms, they're so held on to certain gender norms. All of these things are signs. In trying to sabotage birth control, I talked about that earlier. One of the signs of GBV perpetrators is that they try to sabotage your birth control. They try to take that away from you. They always want you to constantly be in a position of having children, because in that form, they're able to control you. We also have the issue of financial abuse, controlling finances, ensuring that you do not have access to your own finance. Most of the time, you find that women who are educated, who have gone to school, they get married and their husbands are telling them that they should leave their work. That is a major red flag sign. Don't work, don't do business, I will give you all the money. No. everyone must have control of their own finances. And this is something that is very important. In terms of, there are things also like accusing the person of flirting or having extramarital affair when there's no need for accusation, going through somebody's phone, going through somebody's bag. And these are things that, you know, people should watch out for. These are signs. And also things like demeaning the person, hitting the person, embarrassing the person, and then, you know, coming out and begging with all sorts of gifts and whatever. The moment the person does it, the person is going to do it again. And one of the things that I'll say to everyone is that have your comfort, have your space. Have your space where you know nobody should have a right to intrude on this space. Nobody should bring me down in this manner. Nobody should attack you. Love yourself unconditionally and know that as a human being, you're worth being loved. You're worth having a space. You're worth having a voice. One also major thing that perpetrators do is isolation. They isolate you from everyone. They begin to tell you, move you away. Before you know what's happening, you're either quarreling with your family, your friends, you're driving everybody away. They do it in such a way that they will have perfect control over you. And if you see any of those signs, please, as much as possible, get out of whatever that situation. And please let others not force people into that situation to tell them that prayers will work, the person is going to pray. God will not do for us what he has given us the capacity for us to do for ourselves. And God has given us the capacity to be able to identify those things and just take ourselves away from that situation. And at the end of the day, we must know that our well-being, our social well-being, our mental well-being, our financial well-being, our physical well-being, overall spiritual, whatever well-being of us, it's very important. And every one of us, everybody is an endangered species because there's only one you in this world, and you must do everything you can to take care of that you and not allow anybody in any way to met out violence against you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much to all the panelists. This has been a most interesting discussion. I would have loved to go on, but I know that we've really gone over time, so I'm going to hand over to Artie.
Great, thank you, Isang. Wow, what a fabulous discussion this was. So insightful for someone sitting outside Nigeria and getting an insight. You know, this was just amazing to hear. It was extremely insightful to hear the policies that are being taken under the leadership of Honorable Minister against GBW. And we agree with Dr. Obi that we cannot address gender-based violence in isolation, and society must be willing to make gender-based violence a crime, and structural problems should be solved structurally. And Aisha, I mean, it was so amazing to experience the passion you have to help in solving this problem of GBW and how to fight for the right of women to be heard. I truly feel that GBW is not just a Nigeria problem. It is a problem of the entire human race, and we all need to be aware of it and speak against it. A big thank you to all of you panelists, and a special thank you to our moderator for today, Dr. Isang Ava, who weaved through the discussion and helped us members logged in from different parts of the world to understand this very pertinent topic. Before we log off, I would just like to request everyone if we can just take a screenshot of all of you present here. So if you could have your cameras on, and in case you would not like to be part of the photo, we would request you to have your cameras off. I'll just wait for a few seconds till everyone has their screens on. And we will be posting this on social media, so please check us out. And so one more. Smiles, please. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the members and friends who joined us today. I would just like to inform that we are Harvard GlobalWE taking August off. So our next event is a movie club discussion in September. We will be sharing those details with you. Hope to see many of you there. And if you would like to get involved with GlobalWE events, please send us an email at programs@harvardglobalwe.org. We hope you all enjoyed today's really passionate discussion, and we hope you stay safe and have a good day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Bye, Madam Minister, my dear
Thank you. Bye,
Pauline.
my dear sister.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye,
Thank you.
Aisha.
Obi,